You know, every single one of these that's ever been printed throughout history goes to zero. Now, Bitcoin only means that it's going to go there faster and permanently. There will never be, anybody will never attempt to do this again, create this paper Ponzi scheme ever again, once we go into the Bitcoin standard.
In a recent interview between Brandon Gentile and Max Keiser, Max shared his bold views on the future of Bitcoin and its connection to geopolitical figures like President Trump and President Bukele of El Salvador. Keiser delves into how Bitcoin could potentially reshape the global economy, and what it means for nations that adopt it. At the time of their discussion, Bitcoin was trading around $57,000, marking a 1% increase in the last 24 hours and a 1% decline over the past week. Before we continue with the rest of the video, do check out daily 5-minute crypto newsletter with all the latest crypto and Bitcoin news. It's a fantastic analysis of on-chain crypto data and breakdowns, and the best part is it's absolutely free. They'll cover expert predictions, breakdowns of on-chain crypto data, and any breaking news you need to know, all in a nutshell. Click the first link in the description and enter your email to join over 50,000 others in becoming a better crypto investor right now.
The relationship between Trump and El Salvador and President Trump is excellent, and it was during his first term, and I'm sure it'll be excellent during his second term. The past week, there was some tension in the air and a bit of controversy for a couple of different reasons. I think that when President was speaking, he went off the cuff and kind of went on a sidebar and spoke extemporaneously about the situation at the border. Just in the past few days, a Salvadoran national attacked somebody in the U.S., and so this, triggered that kind of sentiment in his mind. And, he gets away with saying lots of stuff and not getting a lot of pushback. But in this case, I felt immediately that this would be an opportunity to actually push back a little. And then he doubled down and said something else, and people were like, hey, Max, you were right. This is not correct to be making these statements because they're materially wrong. They're factually incorrect. He was suggesting that El Salvador is dumping violent criminals into the U.S. That's absolutely incorrect.
They're dumping their criminals into the United States of America, and we're not going to take it anymore.
The truth is that during the Clinton administration, they were dumping gang members from Los Angeles, MS-13, into El Salvador. And that became the gang problem in El Salvador. It was exported to El Salvador from the United States. And that story, I think, needs to be refreshed, that people understand that's the true story, and that the remarkable progress that's been made by President Bukele is even that much more remarkable. Number two, to give you more context, there was CPAC, and both President Bukele and Trump spoke at CPAC, and everyone was talking about President Bukele. He was the star of CPAC. And, Donald Trump, I think, feels a little jealous that the President Bukele is really the most popular leader in the free world. He's young, he's very smart, he's dynamic, he's done absolutely fantastic things in the country. So there's a bit of rivalry there. But I think, the new administration there won't be any problems. I know that Don Jr. has been to El Salvador and met with the president. You have Matt Gaetz has been there more than once. He's actually buying property there. There's now an El Salvador caucus in Washington, D.C., which will be very active. And so I think this whole past week will be forgotten. I kind of amplified it a bit just because I thought that it would cause a little drama, which why not?
Right.
That's kind of what I'm good at anyway, like stir the pot a little bit, and without getting thrown out or arrested. That's always the challenge for me, is to stay out of jail, So I think that all went okay. Bitcoin, as I say, is the magic mirror that exposes you to yourself. If you are not really that great character, Bitcoin will make you worse. And if you're basically a good character, Bitcoin will make you a better person. And Andreas Antonopoulos was a guy who was already a very soulful guy who had other people's interests at heart, and he became a great educator and was a great guy for an orange-pilled many people. Michael Saylor, similarly, Bitcoin took a very successful businessman and made him really an educator and a leader, and he's become a phenomenal success. That's Bitcoin has boosted what was already there. If you're Craig Wright, you're already cracked to begin with, and you're now going to prison. If you're a Do Kwon, you're already a crook from the moment you came out of your mother's womb. Now you're going to prison, right? So it reflects who you are, it accelerates who you are, and this is the thing about Bitcoin we all need to understand, is that the day of reckoning is coming, and you need to be right with Satoshi. Otherwise, you're going to get crushed by Satoshi. Okay? Donald Trump was making a speech about America, and the contrast to RFK is that RFK said, we're going to put Bitcoin on our balance sheet. That's great, because that's what you need to do in World War Bitcoin. If you don't have Bitcoin, you're going to get beaten by Bitcoin. Just like when gunpowder came around, if you didn't have gunpowder, you were taken over by those forces that did have gunpowder. And this is what I think is underestimated by most people, is the importance of Bitcoin in this current environment where fiat money is going to be evaporated completely and go to nothing. Gold's being demonetized. Society is crumbling. The nation state model is crumbling. The central banks are crumbling. And Bitcoin is your ticket to sanity.
As Max Keiser discussed the relationship between President Trump and El Salvador's President Bukele, he highlighted the political dynamics and their potential impact on Bitcoin adoption. Keiser emphasized how this relationship could shape Bitcoin's role in global markets. Now, let's dive deeper into Max's perspective on the future of Bitcoin and its transformative effect on nations and their economies.
In economics, we've had only a few schools of economics, Keynesian, Austrian, socialism, capitalism, right? So really, Bitcoin is a new chapter in economics, it's a new chapter in money, and for people who spent their whole life studying economics and money, are they willing to say everything they've learned up until that point is wrong? No, they're not willing to say that. Very few,
Yes.
Maybe two or three, For me, because I've been reluctant to get too monolithic in what I do and stick with something for too long and become too rigid in my thinking. Bitcoin comes around and I'm allowing it to like I said, I wrote the phrase, you don't change Bitcoin, Bitcoin changes you, right? So that came from a conference called Crypto Springs in Palm Springs, California, and this woman comes up to me and she just found out about Bitcoin and here's how she can make it better. And like I've heard this now from many people over years. I'm like, look, you don't change Bitcoin. Bitcoin changes you, right? And it's just like, that's it. And I only mention that because a lot of people use that phrase and I get no accreditation. Like so much of the intellectual property in this industry, I never get credit for. Michael Saylor, half the shit he says, I said first, okay? The other half is from Trace Mayer, okay? And I stole Trace Mayer shit, okay? So it's Trace Mayer, Max, and then Michael Saylor. But, he doesn't give accreditation? No. I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, it's all good because we're on the same pilgrimage to the Bitcoin singularity when we join with Satoshi. And the whole concept of money is redefined in our global unconscious minds, and violence is demonetized absolutely. And then what's left when you remove violence is love. So we're having that spontaneous global Bitcoin hashing orgasm, right? The network effect and the doubling effect that happens every year or every however many months, like Moore's Law or something, Bitcoin's doubling effect, the network effect. And we saw with the internet. So the internet in the 90s was bouncing around and we got to like 300 million users. And then around 1997, I believe, Netscape went public. And that was the moment that suddenly went up to 1 billion, 2 billion users. Okay, and with the network effect doubled, and doubled again. So you went 300 million, 600 million, 1.2 billion. Boom, boom, boom. 4 billion, 5 billion. So that's I think we're at that Netscape moment in 2024.
Feels like that.
So I think a year from now, we're going to have triple the users. We'll have Bitcoin at 300, 400,000 a coin. We'll have people are it pulled into it. It's like a black hole, if you will. All value, everything goes to zero against Bitcoin in terms of purchasing power.
Yeah.
So that means not only fiat money, but stocks, bonds, commercial real estate, fine art, gold. Gold gets demonetized. I mean,
Yes.
Trump did mention gold.
And silver.
And silver.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's a target that you're going for. And the number go up component of Bitcoin is very compelling because people are inherently, greedy might be too strong a word, but I think it's, like I've said before, Bitcoin is sent by God for humans to unfuck their money. So the greed portion of our character as human beings is a little over tweaked. It served a purpose, maybe more. It was more utilitarian in our previous hunter-gatherer existence.
Yeah.
But when you can print money and then buy institutions and buy media and things, okay, now you see what's happened to the culture and society. It's become extremely decadent, and it's collapsing in many ways. Hit the Bitcoin singularity, and there's Satoshi waiting for us because, Bitcoin comes from the future. That's why no one knows the author of the white paper, is because it came from the future. We'll discover the author in the future because the author lives in the future. I mean, why don't we know who authored the white paper? I mean, I don't know. Nobody knows who authored the actual white paper. I mean, it's a handwriting sample.
Yeah.
Almost any handwriting sample in the world, or written word sample, you could do a search and find out where it comes from, right? Well, how did this one elude so many people? There's a few clues in terms of time zone and some phrases that are used, and you kind of end up maybe geographically here. But it's incredible to me that we do not actually know the actual author of the white paper. The only thing we do know for sure that it's not Craig White, right?
Yeah.
That's the only thing we know guaranteed for sure. But and my conclusion is that it's because it was written in the future. And so Bitcoin is a ladder to the future. The block, the block height is essentially this ladder that's going into the Bitcoin singularity, into the future, and redefining time, energy. And so as a species, we have that singularity, and that's where we're headed, this reunion with ourselves. We get to know who we are in the end. That's the end of the story, is you are who you are. That's the end. So all the gurus and the mystics already tell you that. You say, you are who you are. That's the secret of life.
After hearing Max Keiser discuss the relationship between Trump and El Salvador's President Bukele, it's time to reflect on the broader impact of Bitcoin. We'd love to hear your thoughts on some key questions. Could Bitcoin truly reshape global financial relationships between major nations? And how might countries like El Salvador pave the way in this financial revolution? Share your views below. For more Daily Dose Crypto news, check out these 2 awesome videos on your screen. Click now and we will see you on the next video.